welcome back to my channel. So first, before I get started on this week's video, I just want to say thank you to everyone who has subscribed to my channel. I am really, really grateful. I am almost at 100 subscribers. I am more than halfway there, so that is super exciting. But when I do hit my 100 subscriber mark, I'm going to be doing a giveaway. So I'm going to give away some kind of either like a ferret hammock or some sort of bedding. I will do a video and I will put all the information in the description explaining kind of how to enter and what the prize will be. So I just wanted to kind of give everybody a heads up about that. So if you like this video, please subscribe and hit the like button. And thank you again for everyone who has subscribed and for anyone who watches my videos and comments. I really appreciate it. So for this week's video, what I wanted to do was do a kind of what to consider or what you will need if you plan on or are thinking about purchasing or rescuing a ferret. I want to just kind of give you an idea of what that looks like and what that costs. All right, so number one, a cage. I think it's important that before you go out and buy a ferret, or when you go out and buy a ferret, that you are kind of planned ahead and you know what kind of cage you're going to need. So with ferret cages, you really want them to have enough room to sleep, go to the bathroom, eat, and they're not, and where if you intend to have them in that cage for 16 or 17 hours at a time, that they are able to, you know, not be squished up and be happy. You know, I have a double Ferret Nation. When I first got my ferrets, I got the double Ferret Nation. That is a great cage because it allows them all the room that they need. And that cage was not, that was not a cheap cage. I think a Ferret Nation cage runs about anywhere from $230, the double Ferret Nation and the double Critter Nation run around between $230 and $250. The single is, I think, around $159. I had to order it, so it takes a little preparation. If you're gonna get a Ferret Nation, just know that you're not probably gonna be able to run down to the local Petco or PetSmart or wherever and grab a Ferret Nation. They just don't have. All right, so number two, cage necessities. Things that you must have in your cage, or I'm gonna say you must have in your cage. I'm gonna feel confident about that. You're gonna wanna have a litter box, and you're gonna wanna have like a high back litter box. Ferrets back up to go to the bathroom, they lift up their tails, and a lot of times if the back is not high enough, their excrements will go outside of the litter box, which kind of defeats the purpose. I personally recommend highly that you get a litter box that's designed for ferrets. And they run about anywhere from $9.99 to $20, depending on the size and the fanciness of it. You can get some. I know my ferrets will tend to get behind and push the litter box. They do make them where they attach, kind of, they're secured to the cage. You can get those. It kind of depends on, you know, what your need is. Water bowls and water. So I have a water bottle. It's about 16 ounces. I have a water bowl also. They prefer to drink from the water bowl. The water bowl is attached to the cage. So the water bowls that attach to the cage, they run about between $6 and $8 a piece. So I have a water bowl and I have a food bowl. Both they're identical. One holds food, one holds water. So that was about $16. And then the water bottle, $6 to $8. That's the case. It's like necessities, like things that you have to have. The other things are cage accessories, and those are things like the type of liners or the type of cover. Like I have cage liners that I use. They're made of fleece. I make them. They're made of fleece and of cotton, and they cover the pins of the cage. And they're really soft, and it's important because ferrets like soft. They don't, you know, they want soft stuff. I also have liners for the ramps because they don't want their feet to get stuck and them to get hurt. And their feet can get stuck. So I recommend that you have ramp covers. And then I also have hammocks in their cages. I have 3 hammocks in the double Ferret Nation right now. I have a snuggle sack and a bunch of like pieces of fleece that are left over from my sewing because they bury and hide and sleep in it. And then I have a couple of their toys. And basically, their toys, just the thing with their toys is that they don't have any kind of eyeballs that they can bite off or pull off, any kind of rubber, any kind of plastic, anything that they will eat off and swallow, because that could potentially result in a surgery, which can be very costly. So that is the kind of stuff that I have in the cage. And I would say, all in all, for necessities, you're looking to start probably about 40 or 50 bucks. If you're buying cage liners, it's probably more than that. If you buy them, it's gonna be probably close to 70 or 60 bucks. If you make them, you could do it for about half of that. So, just saying. And I have DIY videos, so that's why I make my own. So that's the necessities for the cage. So that's number 2. All right, so number 3 is how much time does your ferret need to spend out of the cage? So it is recommended by many, many, many reputable sources that your ferret be out of the cage a minimum of 4 hours a day. So that means that if you let your ferret out at the minimum for 4 hours a day, that they're gonna spend 20 hours in their cage. So that just stresses my point about the cages. If you are going to get a ferret, and for whatever reason, you can only take that ferret out for 4 hours a day, consider when you're buying a cage and all of the accessories that that ferret is gonna spend 20 hours in that cage, and that is a long time. When I first got my ferrets, they were out about 10 hours or more a day, and how I did that was I would just have to get up significantly earlier than I needed to go to work. So if I had to be to work at 9, I would get up at 5 in the morning so that I could have them out and let them play for a couple of hours before I went to work. And then when I would get home, I would take them back out and they would play until I went to bed. So all in all, they were out of the cage about 10 to 12 hours a day. I'm not gonna sit here and judge, and it's not my job. I will say this, it's important that your ferrets are out and they get to move around and roam, and that they're a part of your family and they're just a part of. They're social and they don't want to be held up in a cage. And even though you go to the store and it may seem like ferrets are cage animals, they are absolutely not animals that are meant to be left in a cage all the time. So if you can't give your ferrets a minimum of 4 to 6 hours a day, as much as your intentions and your heart is probably in the right spot, think about the animal and the fairness to that animal. If you're gonna get one ferret, that ferret really needs to come out of the cage more than 4 to 6 hours a day. And some people can't afford to have more than one ferret. And you know, I am not gonna judge that either, because it's not for me to judge. But I felt that it was important that my ferret had a friend. So I went and got his sister. And my ferret has a friend. And so that was really important, because I knew that during the time that I wasn't home, he wasn't alone. Ultimately ended up with 2 more ferrets, but that's another story. So that is number 3. And I just want to stress and drive home that your ferrets really need to be out at the minimum 4 hours. And I highly recommend more if at all possible. I really, really, really believe that 6 to 8 is a better minimum. But that's just my opinion. So next one, number 4, ferret food. Your ferret is gonna need to eat. Now, I'm not gonna get into the whole raw diet versus kibble diet. I will just say this about the food. Ferrets are carnivorous. They do not and should not eat vegetables, plants. They need to eat meat. Everything should be meat-based. I will also say this, I do not feed raw to my ferrets. And it is not because I'm against it. It's not because I think it's disgusting. It's honestly because I didn't do it when I first had them and when I first started off with them. And I can barely, they won't even change foods now. Now I did immediately, as soon as I got them, take them off of the pet store food. I absolutely feel strongly that I would not feed them the food that they were eating at the pet store. They eat a mix of 2 different types of dry food, and they eat Stella and Chewy's Duck Duck Goose or the Stella and Chewy's chicken. So, and the reason that I use this brand is because it's made with basically all animal products and meat products. Feeding your ferrets can be expensive. I buy 2 bags of kibble and they get a 50-50 mix. And those bags are about, the one is about $23, the other one's about $27. And I go through 1 bag a month, 1 5-pound bag a month. So that's about what, let's see, we'll say 25, so $50 a month. This is a $10 bag. And this is a $30 bag. They will go through a bag this size, will last about 2.5 or 3 weeks. This will last about a week if I'm lucky. So all in all, I spend about $100 a month on food for my ferrets. Now, I have 4 ferrets. So if you had 1 ferret, obviously the pricing would be completely different. And that doesn't count like treats like salmon oil, Ferritone, that stuff. If you do Ferritone, it's relatively inexpensive, maybe about $6 or $8 a bottle. Salmon oil can be a little more costly, depends on the brand that you use. So that is number 4, that is food, and that is important. Right, the boogie? I know it. Number 5, ferret litter. So I use paper pellets. That's what I use for ferret litter. That's scent free. There's no scent in it. So you can get paper pellets from most pet stores. Just make sure that it doesn't have any kind of scent in it. That it's made with paper. Kitty litter, terrible for ferret. Do not use it's not good for their lungs. They shouldn't have it. So paper litter is what I recommend. I can buy like a 25-pound bag. It lasts me about 2 or 3 weeks. I change my litter boxes at least twice a day. I scoop them out. So that's the litter. All right, number 6, vet care. So my ferrets go to the vet for a yearly checkup once a year for their rabies vaccine and just to make, I guess, whatever vaccines that they need and to make sure that they're healthy and that everything is going good. So this year, just to give you an idea of what that looks like, I took 4 ferrets to the vet in September. It cost me $374 for the office visits, the vaccines, and then it cost me an additional $200 for 2 months of flea medication for them because I take my ferrets outside. And that's just for, now, again, let me just be clear that that's for 4 ferrets. So obviously if you have 1 or 2, it's gonna be less. And then their flea treatment is something that they have to have, particularly in the summer months, because they can get fleas, and they will. And if they're outside, they really should have a flea preventative because they will get fleas. And you don't want them to be infested with fleas. It's really not good for them. It can make them very, very sick. They also can get ticks as well. And they can also get heartworm. If they were to get bit by a mosquito, they are absolutely can get heartworm. So our flea medication that I use covers fleas, the American dog tick, and heartworm. And then you have emergencies, and ferrets can have emergencies. Trust me, before you know it, they will do something crazy and you will find yourself at the vet. They eat something, it gets lodged, that's a lot of money. And if you're not prepared for that, it can be really hard to figure out how to fix it. When he broke his leg, it basically cost me about $1,000, and that was just for the surgery. That wasn't for the follow-up visits and all the other stuff that had to happen after that happened. It was really, really expensive. And so, you know, just be prepared that you can have all the money that you need, and no one's ever prepared for an emergency. That's no different than if I fall and break my leg, God forbid. You know, so I don't want to say you need to have a stockpile of money for an emergency because I don't have that for myself half the time. I mean, it's not that, you know, but just know that emergencies happen and it can be expensive, and just their regular care is expensive. So just know that and be prepared for that. So that is number 6. Number 7, ferret proofing. It is so important that when your ferret is out of its cage, that you have ferret proofed the area in which they will be roaming around in. What that basically means is your ferret will get into anything. They will go in any hole they fit in, they will hide in anything, they will take anything, and they will eat just about anything that is plastic, rubber, or just not, they're not supposed to have it, they're gonna try to eat it. So ferret proofing is really important. If you have a sofa and you don't want them to dig up and get up underneath of it, you may wanna find a way to prevent that from happening. For us, what we did before they had this room is we flipped our sofa upside down and we put chicken wire across the underneath. Now, you may not want to destroy your sofa because I had to use a staple gun to do that, and then I had to find a way to make sure that none of the sharp edges could hurt the ferrets, and it was a whole to-do, but it was in an effort for them to not get up under the sofa. We sit on it, we crush them. So we needed to ferret-proof that. We needed to stop them from getting behind our entertainment center, from getting into, you know, your vents or anywhere where they're going to hurt themselves. So just ferret-proofing can be a tedious process, and you would want to ferret-proof things that you wouldn't even think about. But I know for me, like if I let my ferrets run around downstairs in the living room, the very first thing they go after is the air tubing to the fish tank. So they get up underneath the stand and they bite the tubing, which isn't going to hurt them unless they chew it off and eat them, but it's definitely going to affect my fish tank. And if they do chew a piece off and swallow it, it's not gonna, you know, it could potentially cause them to have surgery. So ferret proofing is really important. And just watching them. I don't let my ferrets just roam while I go do dishes and do this and do that. Like I have to watch them because they're into everything. Ferret proofing, I cannot stress to you how important that is for their safety. For their safety, and in addition, for your pocketbook, because if they hurt themselves, it could potentially cost you a lot of money. And it's not about the money, because to be honest, I would do anything for my ferrets, anything at all, money or not, doesn't matter. But in the grand scheme of it, it's all preventative. If it's not ferret proof, you know, they will get hurt. And I mean, prime example is I had Weasel in the bathroom, and he climbed up on a trash can that was 2 feet off the ground and fell and broke his leg. I have no more trash cans in my bathroom in the one that they play in. Not at all. There's nowhere where they can get any higher than where their feet hit the floor. And that's because I learned the hard way that I did not even think for a second that he would climb up on that trash can and hurt himself. Not for a second. So just think about all the things that, if you think you're being neurotic, that's okay. Be neurotic. Ferret proof your house. I promise you it is worth it in the long run. All right, number 8, my last one, is just gonna be some basic, simple things that you should know. Ferrets should have their toenails cut often. They will get stuck on things and they make this terrible noise, and it freaks you out and it freaks them out, and they could really hurt themselves. So cutting their toenails is really important. If you're not sure how to do that, I will put a video link that will show you how to cut their toenails. Your vet can cut their toenails as well, but it's important that you keep their toenails cut. As far as baths go, I do bathe my ferrets. I don't do it very frequently, maybe once every month and a half, maybe once a month if it's summer and we've been outside a whole bunch. But for the most part, I don't really bathe them often all the time because it's unnecessary and it's not good for their coats. They have natural oils on their skin and they need that. I do give them a bath. And yes, they are a little stinky, and anybody who tells you they're not is lying. There's certain shampoos, I don't recommend that you use Dawn or your cat shampoo, your dog shampoo. They use shampoo that's specifically made for ferrets. I will put a picture up of the kind that I use over here. And that's just what I use. I've used a couple different kinds. I will just say be cautious with your ferrets around your other animals. It's not that they can't interact, and it's not that there are not people who have ferrets that interact with their other animals. And I think that's great. For me, it's just not worth the risk, and I know my other animals, and I can tell that there's potential for harm, and it's just not worth it to me. The risk is not worth it to me. So my ferrets and my other animals don't play particularly alone together, and they also don't really just play together in general. So, and then that's really about it. That's kind of the basics of it, and the basic kind of rundown cost of initial and maybe over time owning a ferret. These are just my opinions. These are things that I've learned. They're not just my opinions, actually. Some of these things, most of them, come from reputable resource sites or reputable books, your vet, other YouTubers who are very knowledgeable in ferret care, and there are many of them. In addition, you know, some of this just comes from experience as well. A lot of the recommendations that I gave you were things that I learned, and then there were also things that I experienced by owning ferrets.
And that's all I got. I hope you enjoy your new ferret.